So in this video we're going to be removing the original spoiler. We're going to be putting this one on and then we'll be spray painting it black and white. So if you already subscribed, welcome back. If you're new here, then thanks for joining us. Make sure you like and subscribe. Hit that bell icon to get notifications of the future videos. So to take the original spoiler off, we're going to be using a few different methods. We're going to show you different ways of doing it and we're going to see what works for us best. So we're going to start with that. Okay, so we tried fishing wire, but now we're trying with a credit card and it seems to be getting into the sealant underneath. So just going to slide it around like that. You just keep spinning it, it seems to be taking it away. Okay, so it's obviously very difficult to get it off, so we've been using this glue and tar remover. We've just lifted it up like that and then just sprayed it down in the gaps all the way around where it's going to seal. I'm going to see if that helps after soaking in for about 5 minutes. Okay, so it wasn't easy to get off. We've got the majority of it off, and now we're just going to have to go over again and then just take all this shit off as well. So this is the bottom of the plastic for the spoiler. It's obviously snapped from trying to get it off, but what we did in the end was we just soaked it about 3 or 4 times with that glue and tar remover, lifted it up a bit, sprayed inside and just went over it again and again. So we got the majority of it off and now we're just going over it just to get these final bits off from underneath. Okay, so I've masked up the holes underneath. I put the masking tape on sticky side onto the bottom of it and then pushed a pencil through both the drill holes that I'm going to be drilling through. So then once you've got it lined up, measured on both sides so it's equal, pull the tape down and then stick that side, and then we're going to do the other side at the back as well, because then the tape where it is exactly where you need to be drilling the holes. Okay, so to start off with, there's a few imperfections, like on the back of there, and then, I don't know if the camera can see it, it's a little imperfection there. I'm just going to go over it with a little bit of filler, fill in all the imperfections, and then I actually had to drill this hole and put a self-tappet in there. So I'm going to fill this back hole because it actually overhangs the back of the car, so I'm going to fill this hole in as well. I'm going to sand down a few of the edges to make them a little bit more smoother. And then I'm going to go over the whole spoiler with 600 grit sandpaper just to make the primer adhere a little bit better. Okay, so the spoiler's had a filler where it's needed to. I've sanded it all down. I'm now going to give it a coat of primer. I've made this little frame with a few pieces of wood just so that the actual spoiler isn't going to be coming in contact with anything. So as I'm spraying it, I'm going to get a nice even coat all the way around. It's going to be hanging over the edge of this table. I'm just going to put a weight on it so that I can get right underneath and get the underneath of it. So before we go over it with a primer, I'm going to use this wax and grease remover. All it does is just remove some of the static from the plastics. Obviously, from being plastic, it creates like a magnetic field and it picks up all the dust particles as you're spraying it. So we're just going to go over it with the wax and grease remover, and then we're going to go with the primer. Okay, so the first, I'm going to be doing the plastic primer. I'm going to be doing 4 coats of that. So I'm going to start with that now. Okay, so the first coat of primer is just like a tack coat. It's just a very light dusting, just to give the paint something to adhere to for the next couple of layers of primer. You can't really see it in the camera, it's not really picking it up, but you can still kind of see some of the yellow coming through. So I'm just going to let this dry for 5 minutes and then give it another few coats. So in the end I did 3 coats of plastic primer, and then I've gone over it with 2 coats of filler primer just to fill in any little imperfections. It's dried overnight, it's cured for 24 hours. So now I'm going to go over it with a 600 grit sandpaper just to get a nice surface and just take out any imperfections. Okay, so the primer's all sanded down now. What I'm actually going to be doing with this is these 2 end pieces I'm going to be painting white, and then the rest of the spoiler is going to be matte black. So I'm going to start with that. I'm going to spray the ends white, wait for that paint to dry, and then mask it off on the lines, and then do the rest of it black. Okay, so I've done the first tack coat. It's really important to do the tack coat because it helps the paint stick to the primer better. I've gone past the line. I'm actually just going to be masking off down here, but I've gone a little bit past it so that I get a nice straight line once I've masked it off. So I'm going to let the tack coat dry, and I'm going to hit it again with another couple of stronger coats. Okay, so the white on the ends of the spoiler is dried now. Obviously there's a lot of overspray that's gone on to the primer. So I'm going to sand that down with 600, and I'm going to wet sand these little bits of white here just down with some wet sandpaper, probably to about 800, maybe 1000, just to make it nice and smooth. So when I spray the black over it, you're not really going to see any of these speckles. I'm just going to smooth it all off, mask off down the line here, and then spray black across the whole of it. I'm going to do that now.
All we need to put on is the radio. I can feel the heat is rising, and that beat is hypnotizing. Oh, no, we run the show. Let's get louder, come on, lose control. Got to live or we get too old. Come on, shine, shine a little tonight.
Okay, so I've sanded it all down, I've masked it all off on both ends. So now I'm just going to start hitting it with the black.
We can shine, shine a little tonight. Shine a little tonight.
Okay, so again I started off with a very light tack coat. I'm going to leave this 15 minutes to dry, then I'm going to start going with heavier coats. Probably going to do about 3 or 4 in total.
Let's hit the club, time to make a move. We got it late, ain't got nothing to prove. Nothing to prove. I can feel the heat is rising, and the beat is hypnotizing. No, we run the show.
Okay, so I've literally just finished the 4th coat. It's still a little bit wet. I've literally just put the can down. I'm going to leave this to dry for about 4 to 6 hours. And then after that I'm going to remove the masking tape. There's going to be a few little imperfections. I don't know if you can just see there where a little bit of dust has got caught under the paint. I'm just going to go over bits like that with some wet sandpaper, probably about 1000 grit. And then I may need to just go over the seams where the white meets the black just with a little bit, just to take the edge out if there's a little bit of an edge on the paint. And then after that, I'll be ready for a clear coat. So when you get to the final stages, to pull the fine line tape off, you need to pull it towards itself, but off to the angle, so like a 45-degree angle. Okay, so all the masking tape's off. I've sanded it all down, taken out all the imperfections. The last bit now is the top coat.
Blaze the fire, take me higher.
Okay, so the spoiler's all done and finished. We've got most of this sealant off now. It's really, really hard. In the end, what we did is we just kept spraying it with the glue and tar remover. And in the end, that wasn't really doing it enough, so we got some petrol and we were spraying the petrol on there, and then we had a cutthroat razor and we were just cutting it off. There was no real way to get it off without damaging it, so in the end I just thought, fuck it. So scratched the hell out of the boot now. So I've taken the boot off the car and I'm now just going to be bringing this back to normal. I'm just going to get the rest of the little residues of sealant off there, just going to sand it all down, put a little bit of filler in where there's little really deep gouges, primer it, spray it again. I've only got matte black, so I'm just going to do it matte black. I think it's actually a bit of a good idea anyway, because it will match in with the spoiler. So I'm going to start doing that now. So I've sanded it all down. I'm just going to go over it with some filler primer. I've masked it all off, so I'm ready to spray. So the primer is dried, it's all been sanded down, so I'm ready to paint. So again, you can see I've just done like a grip coat or a tack coat. Going to wait for this to dry and then go with the heavier coats. Okay, so I had to put the spoiler on the boot to be able to actually get the boot back on the car and to get the spoiler on the boot. And in the end, the actual brackets underneath here that go from the boot door into the car, I had to take the inside carpet out, undo the bolt from underneath, take that bracket off, and then attach the bracket to the boot lid, and then hover the boot lid just about a quarter of the way open, go inside, and then thread the bolt back up through the top of the roof. It was a lot harder than I thought it was going to be, and it's not 100% perfect. I've still got a few things to finish. I need to put the rear light back in. I've just put the lock back in the car, in the door. But overall, I'm really happy with it. As I said, it was a lot harder than I thought it was going to be, but I think the black and white really matches the car. It's obviously a bit Marmite. Some Punto guys are going to be shouting and screaming at me now, but I like it and that's all I care about. So I'm glad you watched until the end. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you give it a like and a big thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe, and I hope to see you at the next car meet or in the next video. Thanks for watching.